Yo, it's good. It's your man, 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. Tonight, I want to comment on the Golden State Warriors uh, consequences that they handed out to Draymond Green. If you like the video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. This is actually a really cool video that I get to do because I'm sure to a degree what Steve Kerr was alluding to was a process of how to really bring this team back together. And what he was alluding to was a process that within the educational arena, we refer to it as restorative justice. Restorative justice. That term has been coined in response to the obsessively punitive form of punishment that the United States is renowned for, such as the three strikes law, stacking sentencing, and feeling like you need to be harder on people for crimes and doing things wrong in order to get them to change. Well, the reality was that all the research says that punitive punishment and excessive punishment, and even just punishment in terms of trying to harm or somehow respond some level of wrong to an individual because of a wrong that they committed, actually doesn't work. Like, it statistically, it doesn't work. It doesn't reduce crime. You can get harder and harder, punish more and more and more. It doesn't stop crime. It doesn't diminish crime. All the statistics bear it out. And so what this process of restorative justice comes from is actually from an indigenous community who actually saw themselves as a collective unit. And I want to talk about this in regards to the Golden State Warriors, because this is extremely important as we try to understand what this process likely was like for the Golden State Warriors. Within this indigenous community, and I'm using indigenous as a broad brush because it was something that was consistently found throughout numerous communities, not just throughout the United States, but also throughout the Americas, and has been constant in many other spaces. The idea of harming somebody or exiling somebody because they have done something that has created a level of harm towards the community is not something that was embraced, is not something that was understood to be healing for the community, because when you're connected to expel that person, right, there are people who have significant relationships to that person, and it only harms them too, so you're only compounding the harm. Also, if the person stays and you do a harm to them, right, now you have a harmed person within your community, and you also have another harmed person from that person, and they don't necessarily feel better or get better just seeing the other person harmed. That's just not really how communities find healing, and that's not how they found community healing. And so a practice was evolved, and it has some variations in these different communities, but within these practices, the mindset is, how do we come together? How do we come together as a whole, as a community, as a family, and acknowledge what has taken place? Create an opportunity for people to share what they experienced, what they observed, and how it's affected them, and then allowing the person who committed the harm and the person who the harm directly was against to also express themselves. And it's an opportunity for everyone to come together, hearing one another, listening, and then creating a plan as to what it looks like for the repair to take place. In other words, if you, let's say, I'm gonna use a very, surface level example, but if you have a kid who's playing baseball outside and he smacks the baseball and it breaks my window, right? Yelling at the kid, threatening the kid, right? Taking his bat and glove and ball away, right? Doesn't fix my window, right? But if the kid says, hey, you know what? I recognize I caused harm. Let me figure out a way that I can repair this window. And let me try to implement some things specifically to make sure that this doesn't happen again, right? A sincere apology, right? Being able to look someone in the eye and really be vulnerable and say, you know what? I apologize for this. I recognize the impact. And I'm also willing to hear how it's impacted you, because maybe that ball came through the window but also hit my laptop, right? Maybe it hit somebody else. Maybe the glass shattered all over the place, right? Maybe my kid was sleeping beneath the window or something like that, right? Like really understand the impact of what took place and then create a plan collectively of how to repair it. Now with the Golden State Warriors, something that Steve Kerr was alluding to, and kudos for Stephen Curry, Kayvon Looney for stepping up and showing real leadership, being proactive to saying, hey, we need to come together in this. We need to have not just one conversation, but several conversations, to give individuals an opportunity to air how they're feeling, to express themselves in a safe space, right? Not trying to, lash out and cuss out and tear down a member of their community, a member of their family, right? Because Draymond is a part of the core. Those are some significant relationships that have been built over the past 10 plus years, right? The contribution. So harming him, tearing him down doesn't help the team. It doesn't help anyone, right? And so how do we talk this out? How do we communicate? And that's what was alluded to by Steve Kerr, right? But then they also were able to come to terms with, like, what does it look like to find repair? And this is where they brought Jordan Poole in. He talks about Jordan Poole playing a major part in talking about what he was desiring, right? And also in terms of how things were going to roll out in terms of restoring the harm, right? He was a major part of that. This wasn't something that was done with just the management or just the organization, and then it was passed down to the players. I think they learned their lesson from the last time between Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, that, hey, harm is taking place, but you guys dictating to us how to manage it, right, doesn't allow us to actually account for what we're actually needing, right? And I think this shows a lot of character and a lot of wisdom from this organization, because too many times people from the outside looking in, and this is what the media is going to do, this is what the Stephen A. Smiths and the ESPNs are going to do. They're going to look from the outside and pretend they know the makeup of the team, right? Pretend they know what everybody's wanting and wishing and thinking, and then they're going to say, this is what should have been done. Well, the reality is you're not in that locker room. The reality is you're not there every single day. You don't know these individuals, and so you actually have to trust the organization, the team, and then watch it play out, right? If this plays out and there's fights happening all the time afterwards, then you can look back and say, hey, maybe something different should have been done. But at this point, you're going to have to trust that the voices that had an opportunity to be heard and share, right, have been accounted for. And the team has come together and decided how they believe best things needed to roll forward. Now, another aspect of this is you cannot look at players in a vacuum and be like, hey, what one player does or didn't do is what everyone else should or shouldn't do, right? We can't say, hey, it was this situation and it should apply for everybody. The reality is Draymond Green is his own individual person, right? Much like how the Detroit Pistons had Dennis Rodman, right? If you listen to their accounts, whether it's Bill Laimbeer, whether it's John Sally, whether it's Isaiah Thomas, right? They talk about constantly, they understood Dennis was a little wild, right? Dennis had his own energy. He could be all over the place, but they came around him as a family, and how they actually operated with Dennis was completely different than how they would operate with a Laimbeer or operate with, somebody like a Joe Dumars, right? Different levels of maturity, different levels of leadership, different internal character skills, and different things like that, right? This is really important, because if you don't do this, if you act like Draymond's supposed to be Stephen Curry, right? If you act like Draymond is supposed to be like a Klay Thompson or Andre Iguodala, you actually miss out on the full person, right? There's a reason why, built in his makeup, he was able to perform and to be the player that he's been able to be throughout his career. He's had an awesome, fantastic career despite his struggles, just like a Ron Artest, right? Ron Artest had an incredible career in spite of his troubles and the things that he's dealt with, right? Rasheed Wallace as well. We have these players, these athletes who have real experiences throughout their lives that shape who they are, and they've been able to succeed in spite of it. How we operate with them has to also acknowledge that they're going to be individual, and how we come together as organizations and teams, right, is going to be really important. And this is a testament, I think, to the Golden State Warriors. Yes, he's had the incident with Kevin Durant, right? Yes, he's had multiple incidents with Steve Kerr, right? He goes over the line. He's swinging at Steven Adams and LeBron's nuts, right? He's getting technical. He's yelling at refs. Yes. And he's also runner-up Defensive Player of the Year or Defensive Player of the Year. He's been an All-Star. He's been, an Olympian. He's been a part of 4 NBA championships, right? A core piece to them, right? It doesn't negate everything else that he is. And so being able to operate and understand and embrace the uniqueness of a player and create some structure around them that's responsive to that is integral to being a healthy, functioning organization, right? And I truly mean that. This is kudos. Seeing this actually brings me closer to the organization, right? That there's been some growth as an organization, and it's also a testament to this Stephen Curry legacy, right, and dynasty, much like the culture and the dynasty that Tim Duncan set, right? He wasn't always yelling and talking and all this stuff, but who he was within that organization and the standard that he set allowed them to build down from that. So when we start talking about generational players, we start talking about these different talents, we start talking about a Victor Wembanyama, right? And we're talking about he's one of the greatest prospects since calm down, because not everybody lives up to being talent and leadership, right? Not everybody is talent and talent you can build an organization around, right? Zion is an incredible talent. I don't know if you can build an organization around him, right? You have other incredible talents around the league, right? You can't necessarily create a culture, right, around this where there are special players that you can do this with. Maybe a LeBron, but he doesn't, stay, especially when organizations can't be responsive. And that's another feather in the hat for the Golden State Warriors, that they've been so responsive to Stephen Curry that he's wanted to be there. He's been willing to stick around through the ups and downs of this organization, and they've had a lot of ups. And he's had some downs, but he's stuck with them because the organization has bet on him in the same way, and they've invested in him, and they've done so wisely, right? So I don't want to go too long in this video, but I do want to say that I trust the decision that the organization came up with because of the process that Steve Kerr was alluding to in this post-game interview, right? He was very clear that this was a process, that this was not something that was being dictated. They had learned from the previous incident and between Draymond and Kevin Durant, right? They allowed the players to step up in leadership, and they had some insight in terms of structuring how do we come together as a team, right? They likely also have a lot of, experiences thanks to Draymond Green, right? They have a lot of skill and experiences as to how to come together, how to bring people back together, right? And Jordan Poole is now also a part of that. I think this is also going to be a part of his maturation as a player, because these are one of those incidents that are going to grow you quickly. You're going to have to answer questions in the media. You're going to have to deal with other teams and people trying to taunt you. You're going to have to grow up through this. And I think that with the support of guys like Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, right, Andre Iguodala, Steve Kerr, Kayvon Looney, right, he's got guys around him who are going to help him through this process. He's not going to be going through it alone trying to mature. He's going to have guys, superstars, all-stars who have his back, right? And don't forget, Stephen Curry, one of the most unselfish superstars we've ever seen, right, is going to also be a guy who's probably going to be looking at Poole and be like, you know what, Poole, I want you to have a great year. I'm willing to take a step back if I need to on different plays to allow you to shine. Because I know that as you shine, it's going to diminish a lot of the heat and a lot of the energy coming at you from this incident. And so when you have a team, when you have a culture that's unselfish and that's together and it's able to support one another, it's absolutely special. And I hope that we're all appreciating just the growth of this organization. Because I remember back where they used to be in the Don Nelson era. Remember when Don Nelson didn't like Chris Webber? As a rookie, didn't like him, and then told the organization to trade him as a rookie, right? This amazing all-star talent because the coach didn't like him. Like, just think about the growth. The PJ Carlissimos, right, who wanted to yell and cuss at the players every single day, with a Latrell Sprewell who's like, bruh, I don't know who you're talking to, right? And they end up choking and get into this fight, right? Like, this organization has grown over the years. And I, for one, am proud of it. But let me know what you think in the comment section. What do you think about the consequence handed down, the fining and not suspension? Like and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'm going to holler at y'all in the comment section. Peace.